Hello and welcome to what I'm going to call the roundup video on coronavirus. I wanted to make this video because I believe coronavirus has definitely changed in scope to what it was, at least in the UK, since my last video. So I just wanted to go over it, mainly focus on where my project is as of right now, where it can go, if I will continue it that much, and all these type of questions. And then also just quick look at report anomalies in great detail, because now there's so much data we can actually see how report anomalies can cause misunderstanding and just confusion and a lot of weird stuff. And also just wanted to look at the East in general, as when people think of the East, they will see China, but I don't believe there has been much scope, at least to a mainstream audience, of all the other countries around China, and in general East. Anyway, so where I've gone to is I've gone to a very happy point where I can just autofill all my data in from the university that's providing. I should get that university name up on screen here. This is their project. John Hopkins University. I take their information from here. They have a GitHub repository which I just keep uploading onto here. So I'm very grateful for them and thankful that they had such nice data to work with. Anyway, from all these dates, they're compiled, blah de blah. What I've done with a lot of these things, because this data is so spread out, I wanted more generalization. I created these things called indexes, which they'll take all these values, which are, so you can see these are all in the US. And what it's doing for the US index is it's just summing up all of these confirmed values in this data, and it's coming out with that number. And I have done testing to make sure that is correct, and I feel that is pretty accurate. And I just do that for a lot of countries, because I'm not 100% sure on which country needs an index or not. It's all just a matter of when I want to look at that country. If I don't already have an index, I test it. If it needs the index, I then have to put it in. So that can be a little bit laborious, but still pretty cool. And when I talk about putting it in, just for your sake here, I put in the country with its population because the population is needed to perform certain statistics, which we can see later on. Anyway, here's my main tab, or my tab which I just like using the most to look at stuff. You just pick a country out of all of these that were available, and it will grab all of the data for you. You can already see this might be down to how the data is structured in there. Have to do a lot of cleaning. That's one way of putting it. But yeah, it's very weird. Get report anomalies like this, negative 1,400. But Netherlands seems to be good, and then this is probably where the country's now been split into different areas in the data set. So if I was to look into Netherlands further, I'd probably have to create an index here, because as the data is getting larger and larger, that team, which is making this data, can split into smaller and smaller subsections as the government creates more and more facilities to look at each area. I mean, Iceland, I'm sure this place hasn't changed that much yet. It's very tiny. You got a negative 91 there. This is all just stuff where they have to adjust numbers because something's been inputted wrong. You got a negative 1 there. It's all very weird, strange things. But this is just for a small country. When you start taking those type of report anomalies into big countries, that's where you can get a lot of worry. Anyway, and so off the back of that, I want to switch back to 3 countries just because they're nice together. So we got the US. I want to look at India, and what's the other big one? Brazil. Those right now are currently, I believe they are the top 3 for cases. Where's Brazil? There you go. Perfect. And they're the ones which are still currently growing quite rapidly. Their growth is slowing down, but there's still a lot of numbers. So anyway, this is then a graph that I've been working with. From this data tab, I've made. I don't want to explain all of it because it'll take really long. But this was back in the early stages. This was my attempt at making a statistic that showed like a danger level. I couldn't normalize it though in any way or work with it so it's kind of human readable, which is a weird thing to say. But I can understand this, and it's just something that goes up and down depending on where the points are. So this was the US had two peaks. This was their second peak, and then you can go back over here and you'll see it's at 72. And this was when they had their first peak. And because of a report anomaly here, you'll see that their confirmed increase would be highest. So if you were making a statistic in some sort of paper or some article and you didn't have much statistical knowledge all of it in front of you, you could say something like, "Oh, don't worry, we had our highest confirmed increase in US ages ago." This was, when was this? Not ages ago. Yeah, 2 months ago. Where in actual fact, they are not doing the best right now, and it was because of report anomaly that the US had their highest confirmed increase at a certain day. So you can see how dangerous report anomalies can be in terms of bad reporting and online activity like that. So that's one thing that's a good example to highlight there. And yeah, and this was just statistic I was working with. I'm not going to explain it because there's too much stuff that goes into it, and it's best just to be left as it was a fun experiment. Anyway, here's the graph. As you can see, the dots also represent report anomalies. Lysa, you can see this American one down here, and then you can see the highest one up here. So that's what we were just looking at. But we've got an average line here. This is a polynomial average. I'm not 100% on the mathematics behind it. However, it is the best for representing peaks and troughs in the data, which, as you can see, works very well. So you can see the blue line. You can see America's that it had a peak, and then it started to go down, and then it's had another much more massive peak, probably due to the riots, if I was to guess. And now it's up there. We can then look at India, which is the orange one. India is just starting its growth, so that's contradictory to what I originally said. I haven't actually, if I'm honest, I haven't looked into India that much. I've kind of backed off on this project. I've just kept updating it so I can just look at the countries I already knew were in trouble, and just so it's just nice to see numbers coming in and out, for me at least. And then the second, last one, Brazil, you can see they're having a growth as well, a lot more steady. They're still growing, and this is what this is. This is the dots are confirmed increase, which can cause a lot of issues and report anomalies. But I found this was the easiest one to work with in terms of graphing, just right off the bat. I could have tried to work with my homebrew one, which I think would represent similar curves, but because of the style that they're reported in, this percentage, it's weird to graph them. So I just tend to stray away from that. And also with that my statistic there, we would miss the anomalies, which are actually quite nice to see on the graph. So yeah, you can see these anomalies of dots here. You can work on like, okay, now I can put a certain thing that'll recognize it and it can highlight them. So it's nicer to work with this at the end of the day. Then this was another project I did, which was me investigating into the R statistic. I wanted to try and replicate it because the R value was big talk of the town, and actually outside the mainstream thing is a very useful statistical measure. It's just that when it got picked up by the media, it started to become this magical thing which people started using it as an excuse to go outside, where they were saying, oh, the R number is 0.9, or oh, the R number is blah de blah, without really understanding what that meant. the mainstream way it was told was that for every case, if the R number is 0.9, for every case it would be infecting 0.9 cases. So people would be like, it's on the decrease. Yes, it's on the decrease. Doesn't mean that it's going to go back up if you all start going out though. Anyway, so yeah, this was, I used a predictor, not algorithm, equation that I found off the internet to make this estimate. The one thing that I started to come in on though, which I couldn't really work around because there were certain statistics I couldn't get. I just didn't have enough. I didn't have enough data available to me, or I didn't have the knowledge or further time to look into these things. I think they were mean infectious time, which I could estimate. I think I was estimating it somewhere up here. I've probably left a bunch of notes for myself. Yeah, here we go. So you had a mean infectious time, and then there was other statistics which were like infectious time current, and you had to give a prediction of how many people were infectious at a given time and not just confirmed. And there was one other one which I just couldn't find the information for after trying to find sites that would provide it. No, and I just didn't know how to properly estimate it, so I left it out. However, you are left with this R estimate, which can be very good in the heat of the pandemic because it will tell you very good numbers above. When it starts being above 1, you can predict the size of how fast it's increasing, which is good. But when it starts to go into the slower, just kind of, you're just trying to contain it. The one issue with this estimating equation is it will not go below 1, and that is because of how it is set up in terms of exponentials, and it's to do with, it's been a long time since I've seen this, but yeah, it's to do with exponential, and exponentials can't ever be negative. I should check that. I'm pretty sure they can't be. Where's my calculator? You can tell that the preparation time for this episode was high priority. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I had to do some stretching. Okay, so yeah, it's where's the E button? Yeah, you put in -1, you get 0.0. Yeah, try this exercise at home if you want. Get a calculator out and just start playing around with e to the power of whatever number you can think of, and you will never go below 1. No, you will never go below 0, and because of that, you can't go below 1 due to how it is interacting with another variable. So, I feel like I should check it just a little more. Yeah, that's just a massive number. Let's try heavily negative. That's just that. Yeah, that's very tiny, right? Yeah, that's tiny. Let's try it to the 0. Ooh, it's 1. Woohoo! Okay. It can never go below. Where's it again? I think that was it. Okay, you know what? I'm wasting time on this section. Just trust me on this. If you don't trust me, feel free to go experiment yourself. That'll be great. I wouldn't be sarcastic. Seriously, I enjoy it, so feel free to try and do it yourself. But yeah, anyway, our estimates, and then this was me putting the R's all together. You can see, as I said, during the heat of pandemic, you can actually get a nice kind of estimates going. That was strangely in line, and then it just, when it gets down to these sections, though, you barely see any difference. It's very hard to actually say if there's anything going on. And then this was my old way of doing it. As you can see, it's kind of a little bit all over the place right now. I haven't updated this for a while, as you can see. But I kept this around because it's just nice to see it. But this was working with scores. So I was trying to normalize, so that percentage that we saw in the country data tab, this was me trying to normalize that into a score. which was proving to be quite hard. Some of these are in why are these? Oh no, they're all in percentage. Why are they in percentage? Maybe one day I'll come back to this. But yeah, you would then have a total score here. But really, a lot of it, looking back here, was a bit of pseudoscience. I think I was timesing stuff by 100, just because then it would go below a certain threshold. Yeah, so this one I just times by 100, so then it had more influence. I don't really have the knowledge for why I would put more influence on that. You can get rid of it or put it higher, but is what it is. Is what it is. So we leave that. We leave it alone. Oh yeah, it's all starting to come back to me how this was generated now and this. Okay, but yeah, that's like whatever. So yeah, that's my project at this point. Oh, this tab. Yeah, this also just gives. This is like everything all in total. So I think, what is that number? Is that 15 million? Yeah, that's 15 million. I think we're at 15 million cases. We can confirm with the Bear website, which is one day ahead of my data, and also got a much more experienced and bigger team working on. But 50 million, quite a lot. So yeah, anyway, I don't think I will go over any more reporting on these, because I think the US one is a good enough example to show you why report anomalies can be very scary in terms of reporting. Because if these were the published numbers, which I believe they are, because I did some checks with another website once with a friend, and my numbers seem to be exactly proportional to what this other website had, or very similar, this would cause a lot of report issues. Anyway, final one that I wanted to go into, talking about the East. And this was just because I've had so many conversations about, I hear loads of people talking about China. I am no way supported China, and blah de blah. I don't think they deal with some of their issues in the best way, but who am I the judge? I've never been a president or a leader of a country, so I don't know how hard it is. But one thing I hear a lot is China is lying about their numbers. Because they're ground zero, people find it very hard to understand how ground zero is doing much worse than well, look here, US, Brazil, and India, and all these other countries which are all the way over here in the different part of the world, much further away. And to some extent, yes, I do believe that China is withholding some of their data, and that there is a high possibility that their numbers are much lower than they actually were, given their population size, given some of the living conditions, given some of their policies about human treatment. It seems much lower given those factors, but given how they actually responded to the virus, where they were welding people into their houses. Apparently, this was what I've heard. I shouldn't state this as fact. They were throwing families or just members of a family who were infected in these hospitals, and we've all seen those ones which they built in 10 days, throwing them in those hospitals and just locking them in there for 2 weeks with barely any living standards. Basically concentration camps, close enough. Just hospital beds in rows and rows, no staff on hand apparently, or just one doctor or something, and just waiting for them to become uninfected, and just huge restrictions on who can go out. Like, barely anyone could go out. It was all heavily restricted. And I don't think those are the best ways of doing it. I don't think that is humanly right or ethical. However, I do think a method like that would cause lower numbers. So if you were a machine and your machine was told to make lower numbers, that would be one of the ways of going about it. And I think that when people say that China's lying about their numbers, they don't see, or they don't highlight the actual measures China has taken to try and get those numbers low, which I think is much worse than if China was lying about their numbers, because that's huge human right issues, and I mean they have concentration camps normally, and that I find more people just outraged by the fact that they're lying about numbers. So just keep in mind their numbers might be low just because of how they're treating their citizens, and that it should maybe, instead of treating their low number as a way of saying that they lie about things, instead see it as this is a form of proof that China how could you say, badly treats their population, and that's how I look at it. Anyway, further thing to just show that I think another reason why they believe China's lying about their numbers is because it's so low and it's ground zero, and when you look at the Eastern, much larger. But if you go by that knowledge of how come those countries far away have much larger numbers, surely then the countries closer to it should have much higher numbers as well. Well, South Korea is doing pretty good, 13,979. Their democracy, they have no reason to lie about their numbers, and they have shown that they have dealt with this in a very good manner. I don't believe they ever had to close their travel ports. I believe they did heavy contact tracing, which is what helped stop the spread, and they have had previous exposure to viruses, so they knew how to handle this well. We go to Japan, which is also very close to China. I would need an index to look at this properly, but we go to the biggest circle in Japan, which is Tokyo, 10,000. It's probably going to be roughly around the same size as South Korea when you add up everything else, because you got like small provinces of like 1 and then 60. So yeah, around here, we'll just say 20,000, because why not? That's probably an overestimate. And still, rather low compared to what we've seen on the other side of the world, if you would think of it like that. Go down to the Philippines. It's higher, granted, it is higher, and however, compared to the Western world, the numbers are still lower. We go over here to Indonesia. Numbers are higher than Philippines. However, compared to the Western world, the numbers are still lower. We go here to Malaysia. Numbers are much lower. We go to Singapore. Numbers are much lower. Go to Australia. Numbers are quite low in Australia. To be honest with you, I have no clue about Australia. That is quite surprising. New Zealand, like barely anything. Small islands. Can't even pronounce that. Guam. Is that Guam? Is that the one I hear all the stories about? Yeah, probably. But yeah, all these countries are very close. You could also look at Russia. And these parts of Russia here, these are the ones that are right next to it. They seem fine. But when we go over to these parts of Russia and Moscow, look at those numbers. Huh. And that's because it's a city center. I don't know why I had to highlight it was a city center. But the point I'm trying to make here is that it's not like the eastern side have done anything or like doing anything crazy, like they've done this or they've done that or they're lying or bloody blah blah blah, blah they're doing the blah. They've dealt with viruses before, and they've dealt with it in a very good way. We in the Eastern world have just not dealt with it well, and that is the foundation line. And I think one thing that you could say when it comes to comparing different countries is that there's many different lifestyles, and in the Eastern world, there's a much more kind of traditional, the system is right lifestyle, which would mean that those citizens in those countries are more likely to listen to a lockdown if it was to happen. And that could also be shown through this as well, because you can see these Eastern countries, which are a little bit more open with how citizens go about things, have higher numbers. But I think uh, with every single conversation I have with coronavirus and all this stuff, to me personally, I feel people just don't look at the eastern side of the world and how they've done so well in a sense. And I mean, the government would in the eastern wouldn't want to highlight that, so you wouldn't see much about that in the newspapers. I would guess. I mean, I haven't seen any BBC highlights on my phone or articles about the eastern world, so it's probably just that the news isn't reporting on it because the government wouldn't want them to, or blah blah. But they're not even government controlled. I don't even really know. I Maybe I'm just missing the news articles on the Eastern world. Maybe there's something I've missed completely, and it makes me look like an idiot. But I mean, one place you could say that goes against what I've been saying with the Eastern world is India, because India is, well, look at the number there in India. And again, this could be further proof for why China's lying about their numbers, because India is a very heavily dense country. And so they've got a huge population like China, and this shows that a large population causes a large spread. You could or counter argue that, saying that India doesn't have the same kind of regimen that China does, and they're a lot more free. The living conditions in some parts of India are abysmal, but you could also say that in China. Loads of arguments for both sides there. I don't even want to get into that because I don't have all the information to give a proper, how can you say, a proper conclusion. I can't give a proper conclusion also on if China's lying about their numbers or not. The main point I was trying to give there was just that you must keep an eye on how they're treating their civilians there. I'm kind of rambling at this point. Most people probably clicked off by now. But you know what? That's fine, because I just wanted to make this. And yeah, oh, shut up, phone, what are you doing? Okay. But yeah, that would be my roundup. Oh yeah, I would also like to point out that one thing we can see is that the mortality rate in young adults to children and all that is incredibly low, and that young children or students who had to quarantine even though they lived by themselves or with other students, they didn't really need to do that. I mean, yes, if they could have been an asymptomatic carrier, so it was best just to do everyone, especially when it was all panicky. But it wasn't necessary, really. And to be honest with you, the reaction from a lot of young people has been rather good. There are always outliers, of course, but I do believe that a lot of people have actually really adhered to the guidelines and really did take it seriously when it was happening, which is quite good to see. And there was a kind of global banding together to help stop this, and that was great. That was good. I would also see loads of people being very good about trying to keep each other informed. It made people become more creative at home. It made people more critical thinking, if that's a sentence. It taught people to look at numbers more, which is also good. I found loads of people were taking taking a much bigger interest in statistics after this, which was nice. I think it also opened up people's eyes to how news reports, hopefully, because I think the news reported very weirdly during all this. I mean, they were given they were in a hyped state for most of it, but now since it's calmed down, it's it's now gone to a more kind of calm stream of data. Even though the numbers are still growing, it's gone to a calm stream of data because everyone understands this much more. So, yeah, overall, I think people have taken a lot out of this global experience, and it's done some good in terms of mental thinking, talking, reflecting on their own actions, and just general self-improvement. So, yeah, not all bad. I'm not trying to justify this as this was great. this was not great. Our economy is doing shit. Every economy is doing shit. But there are lots of jobless people. So, yeah, there are still a lot of bads. But it doesn't mean we can't look at the good. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. Thanks for watching this series. If you watch any more, I might make another video depending on if some crazy stuff happens. Oh yeah, and another note, I did have to take down one of my coronavirus videos because it had my name in it. And this is to the public. I know most of the people watching will be people I know, but it's not good to have my name out there on this channel. The other videos should give you a reasonable reason why. The other videos on this channel, I would say. So, yeah. But anyway, I'm kind of just going on now. Okay, thanks for watching. Take care, everyone.